trying to load it up. Yeah, it's trying to connect to YouTube or something like that. Or okay, so let's try this again. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? RIB back for another video. Uh, with me today is if you just want to introduce yourself. Okay, so just say just like literally anything again. Sorry. Okay, so let's try this again. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? RIB back for another video. Uh, with me today is if you just want to introduce yourself. No, man, it's extremely low. I can barely hear you. Is there any sort of like a, I don't know, like a setting that you can use for like your microphone levels and just try and just boost them up? Yeah, it's just so um in the YouTube stream, it's just ridiculously quiet. We just can't hear you at all. Yeah, it's just so in the YouTube. Yeah, this is kind of bumming me out now. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, this is kind of bumming me out now. I'm not gonna lie. No, same story, man. Yeah, that is very, very, very weird. Yeah, I don't know what's going on either, dude. I'm just gonna level with you. I honestly don't know if I'm gonna be if I'm just gonna level with you. Okay, well, it's a little unorthodox, and I genuinely have not actually done this before, but I could answer the call on my phone and then just have that up to my mic and just broadcast it that way because I can still hear you. So I think it might, well, yeah, it might work that way. Hopefully, Okay, so I don't actually have Skype on my phone, so I'm going to call you back on Hangouts. All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm calling you over there now, dude. All right. Oh wow, camera's on. Don't want that. Okay. Right. Um. Okay. So let's just try this again. Okay. So if you just want to say something there.
Yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, can you hear me?
Hopefully, this is not the way that we usually do things, but hopefully we can hear now.
Yeah.
Just want to check there. Okay, so if you just want to say something there.
Yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, can you hear me?
Hopefully. Yeah. Okay. So we can hear you. I can anyway.
Yep. Okay, is it still okay quality or
Well,
is it bad?
I mean it's going from mic to mic, so
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit muffly or but not great quality.
it's not great, but look, it's workable. It's workable.
Okay.
We can make out what you're saying and stuff like that. So
Oh, right. Okay. Let's go ahead on that basis then.
Okay. So yeah. So like we had kind of talked there in the off portion or in the quiet portion about how we were going to kind of play this. So yeah, I think if you just kind of want to say just kind of what you believe and how you can justify
Okay,
what you
well,
believe.
basically, yeah, that's fine. Basically, I founded a new philosophy which is called Astronism. Really, it's a mixture between a philosophy and religion, so we call it an organized philosophy. And the basic idea is that basically when we die, that we go back to the cosmos, basically that we go back um, to to the Earth, but the Earth as a product of the cosmos, of course. And it's really this idea that there isn't really an afterlife. We don't really have souls or anything like that. We really do just we die, but there is this process of us returning from where we have come, and that process is what I've called osmosis. So that is like we call it like a cosmic union. So returning to the cosmos when we die, and you can see things, actually physical processes like decomposition, for example, uh, where we physically our bones physically go back into the earth if the or through cremation we're scattered and our ashes are scattered and they go back into the earth in that way. So it's very naturalistic. It's there are supernatural elements. Don't get me wrong, but it is mainly naturalistic. And the other most important part about it is we have a different what we call worldview, really, a different way of perceiving the world, and we call that a cosmocentric view of the world or view of existence, really. And basically, that is um, sort of the cosmos or space, if you will. That is the center of our spirituality, our beliefs, our focus. So just like Christians would focus on contemplating God and the nature of God, we would focus on contemplating the cosmos, for example. Um, that's why there's a very strong tradition of philosophy that exists, within Astronism, because we we philosophize about the cosmos, and so that's a very new thing. It's a very different thing. But there's also a long tradition of astronomical religions, of course, things like astrology and other things like that. And even though we are sort of separate from those, we do share that same history, so that same lineage, if you will. But yeah, it's obviously very new. It was founded about 6 years ago by myself, and it's still in its developmental stage.
Okay.
That was a lot there, wasn't it?
Yeah. No. No. No.
So
No. It's no.
yeah,
It's not that. No. No. The like. I guess the kind of most glaring question for me has been,
yeah,
um, you've mentioned a religion several times,
yeah,
but you
yeah.
never mentioned any sort of like a deity that you believe in.
Well, no, because I mean we do have God, as in well, in philosophy we call it the uncaused first cause of existence, which is, I think, came from ancient Greek philosophy. So we have that concept, and we call that the divine. But it's not central, and that's the thing we need to remember about Astronism is that the contemplation of God really isn't central. I would say that we are. It's still there, but it's not central. So it's kind of like Buddhism in that way. You can make a parallel there, because in Buddhism, um, it's non-theistic. So even though they may believe in some sort of God, it's not central to their beliefs. Do you know what I mean? It's not all encompassing like it is in Christianity. It's not the main focus, if you will. And it's similar to that in that way.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Um. Okay. So if you just kind of want to just like describe for me the like type of like
Yeah.
yeah, see, I was gonna say if you want to just describe the type of deity, but it's not even
Well, no, it's very
really.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the deity that would you could say basically it's something that exists outside of our reality, if you will. You could call astronism panentheistic. I don't know if you're aware of that
Yeah.
term, but where God sort of exists outside of our reality, but kind of interpenetrates it a little bit as well. Um, so it's the divine concept is a little bit like that, but again, it's really not central. Um, and in religion, really, the, there's lots of different types of religion, of course, and they don't all need to be centered on God in particular. There's many different religions that are more spiritualistic rather than theocentric, if you know what I mean. And astronism, I would say, is probably non-theistic. I would say it's not really too concerned with whether God exists or not, or you know that type of subject area. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. So the again sort of the like biggest question that I have kind of coming out of all that you had
Yeah,
said that like the deity that, or the whatever that you believe in doesn't
yeah.
or sorry, e- exists outside of our yeah.
Our reality or
Mm.
our existence. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So if like I could just kind of ask you the question then, what is the difference between what you believe in and something that does not exist?
What is the difference between something I believe in? Oh, you mean outside of this reality? You mean?
Yeah.
Well, for us, really, well, the divine does interpenetrate this reality, and that there are, for us, instances in which we can see, for example, the creation of the Big Bang, for example, we would say would be an example of some sort of uncaused first cause, if you know what I mean. Something must have created that, and that's a very deep philosophical. It's got a very long history. This idea of the uncaused first cause,
Yeah.
idea that there has to be a cause for something, because otherwise we start
Well,
going
you
something
see,
like,
the only
yeah.
thing that I kind of have to
Hmm.
take out of that was you had said that like something had to make all of this, or something had to create all of this, I think is what you said.
Well, it's like an uncaused
Yeah.
first
So
cause. Yeah,
the problem that I have with that is the fact that you're using the word create, because create
yeah, okay.
implies a creator, and so you're smuggling it in.
Yes. No, yeah, I understand that. And I think, well, really, but it's a different type of creator, I suppose. It's you've got to understand it in that sense of, this is a, you could say some type of force. I mean, it could be something like gravity. That sort of is pulling the universe together. You could understand the gravity in that way, as in we couldn't exist without gravity. And then that's what sort of makes the universe, as it is, if you know what I mean. So you could understand it in that way. But I get what you're saying about create. Yeah, I think if we start going into the realm of uncreatedness, which is a part of astronomy, and we can get to that at some point.
Okay.
We start going into this idea from sort of Hindu and sort of Buddhist traditions of sort of, the universe has always existed. It's that always existed idea, which that's interesting, and it's an interesting idea, and definitely astronomism would be open to that. I'm not saying that it's entirely set in stone, but the idea that there was something that was an uncaused first cause, I think that's quite important to stress. I think, but the discussion of that isn't central to astronomism, and that's what we need to remember. I think, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
understand what you mean. Um. Okay. So I think we've kind of went over
yeah,
enough about what you believe. So
okay.
if you want to just kind of just go on to how you can justify that belief.
Well, the main belief in astronomism that we have that is important to us is this idea of cosmocentricity, which is our worldview. That's how we perceive the world. That's how we perceive, why we are here, what we are doing here. And it's all based on this idea of cosmocentricity, which is a term that I coined, to relate to this belief. And basically, that is all about this idea that it really is our destiny to explore space, firstly, and secondly, that our perception is severely, quite narrow, if you know what I mean. As one species on one planet in the universe, our perception is extremely narrow, and what our main, you could say, our main goal is to really expand that perception and make it more cosmic rather than just human, if you know what I mean, or just Earth centric, more cosmocentric. So, that's a really important element. And then, of course, the other idea of cosmosis, I suppose that does kind of speak for itself, in the sense that it is quite naturalistic in its nature. because it's exploring ideas that, well, in the sense that when we die, it's not saying that we're going to any particular place. It's not saying that there is an afterlife. It's literally just saying that we are returning to, our where we came, which was the cosmos. If you think about it, we all came from the Big Bang. Everything happened from the Big Bang onwards, and really, in our lives, towards the end of our lives, we are returning to that. We are dying. We are decomposing. So in that sense, there is no supernatural element. However, there are different schools within astronomism that have developed over the last 6 years. And in those different schools of thought, there are some supernatural beliefs that involve a spiritual element. And they incorporate a spiritual element into this idea of cosmosis. So people who would follow that school of thought would, for example, say that, okay, once we've gone back to the earth, once we've gone back to the cosmos, we've decomposed, there is some sort of spiritual element of ourselves that lives on in some way, and for example, goes up to the stars, or that's a very ancient belief that we can get into at some point, or just goes to some sort of heaven. But it's not the main belief of astronomism. The school of thought that I follow, that I founded and that I follow, is basically just this idea that really we have a destiny. We do have a destiny. I do believe that, but that there isn't really an afterlife. There is just this naturalistic process where we return to the earth, and that really our destiny is to explore the cosmos, to explore space, and that's enough for me. I don't know if it's enough for other people. I mean, obviously I know that my followers and people who follow astronomism, it's enough for them. But it's enough for me to know that my purpose to exist is so that either myself, hopefully one day, or my ancestors, or people in the future can explore space. I mean, that's just the best thing, I think, to be able to do that. I think that's our purpose.
Yeah, look, dude, I'm not like basically everything that you said, apart from the whole kind of
Yeah.
like spiritual elements of it. Dude, I'm right up there with you. I
Okay.
I
Yeah.
totally 100%. The
Yeah, and I
the
think
Big
that,
Bang happened, all of that sort of
yeah,
stuff. I don't believe in an afterlife in the traditional sense, shall I
correct.
say?
And I don't either. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I
So
don't. And I think I've created astronomism really as an alternative to that. Really, I mean, if you look at some of the other religions in the world, the most dominant ones are those that sort of profess this afterlife, and the sort of morality based system where if you do certain things, you won't get to this paradise, for example. There is none of that in astronomism at all. And, you know, it really is more about philosophy and exploring ideas rather than telling people what they can and can't do. Do you know what I mean? Um, so yeah, I mean, and I think as well, when I have spoken to really both staunch atheists, but also anti-religious people in general, they've been kind of quite kind to me. Generally, there've been some who sort of completely dismissed what I'm saying, and everything like that. But a lot of them have been fairly, positive about it, because it is quite naturalistic. It's not saying that we're going to go to, a paradise after we've died, or anything like that, or we're going to see our loved ones again, or, it's not saying that. It's very based in really rationality, really, you could argue, and logic. And that's where we see the philosophical element of
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm just gonna level with you. I'm struggling to find a difference in what we believe.
it. Okay,
I'm
brilliant.
genuine.
Oh,
Like when you had
okay.
said that
Yeah,
other atheists like had been quite kind to you, I fully understand why. I fully
right.
understand why,
Yeah,
because you're not promote or you're not what's the word? You're not promoting this idea of like an absolute set of moral standards, and it's
no,
based
not
on
at all.
what a deity from however many thousand years ago said, and all of these sort of things. So I fully kind of get like where you're kind of coming from, and like what you're
Yeah.
saying, but I guess like the like one and only problem, and it's maybe an error to call it that, is that I'm genuinely struggling to find a difference in what we actually don't agree on. Like I don't disagree with, like, I wouldn't have used the word spiritual. Like I like wouldn't have used that word, but I mean like
Right.
that's a minor detail at best. So I'm just kind of
No, it's interesting. I mean, I need to probably explain it a little bit more, and then maybe you might not agree as much. But another really important element of it is, so we've just to set out what we've discussed so far. So we've got astronism, which is the name of this organized philosophy, as we call it. We've got its worldview, which is cosmocentricity or cosmocentrism. Just like Christianity is theocentric, we are cosmocentric.
Mhm.
And then we've got this idea of cosmosis, which is this idea that when we die, we go back to the cosmos, we go back to the earth, um, and that there is no particular afterlife. And then where it sort of was looking about how we should explore the universe, and that's our main existential goal and destiny to explore the universe. That's why you know um, we have the intelligence, hopefully one day, to be able to do that. But then what I came to was, okay, but how there's something quite missing from that. And what I wanted to introduce as the third and final sort of main element is this belief in what we call astrosis. So this is like a separate process, cosmosis. Now I'm talking about astrosis, which is basically the idea that we can achieve this sort of union with the cosmos, or this union with the cosmos, or this sort of intellectual union while we're still alive. So no matter who you are, no matter what religion you believe, cosmosis will happen for you. It doesn't matter whether you're good, bad, or anything else. You are going to, from our perspective, you will go back to the earth and you will decompose, and that's it. Whereas the to be an astronist specifically is to go towards this goal, really, of astrosis, because not everyone can achieve that. And I feel that I'm on that road. And really, what astrosis is this idea that we can achieve, like I've said before, this cosmic union when we're still alive through like an intellectual process, through learning about the cosmos more, through having some type of connection to it. Because I feel when I look up the stars and when I learn more about the stars, I do feel a greater connection to the universe. I feel more emotional about it, and the greater education we have about anything, we feel closer to it and have a greater understanding of it. And what astrosis is this process that hopefully people will experience throughout their lives of trying to understand the cosmos in the best way possible, in the highest way possible, by both learning about it, observing it, And hopefully one day, I hope, well, I believe that we will explore it. So that will be another sort of, you could say, approach to this idea of astrosis, where we can actually have a physical interaction, really, with the stars, with space, which really will change our perspective. It will change how we see ourselves as a species, and so I mean, I don't know what you kind of think of that. Maybe I've sort of gone off the rails from what you're thinking, but I think that is really important, and it gives us as astronists, it gives us our greater purpose. It gives us a more defined purpose than just, when we die, we go into the ground. Do you know what I mean? Because anyone could believe that. An atheist could believe that, or just a non-astronist could believe that. Do you know what I mean? So I think this idea of astrosis that is sort of connected to this other process of cosmosis, it just gives it that purpose. It just gives it that idea that we can achieve this during our lifetime, not just something that we achieve when we die. So I don't know whether I've gone maybe
Yeah,
too far.
there was one question that I kind of have, basically. So you had said that, like, some people reach this level of astrosis. Is that what is that what you said? Yeah. And that was basically people kind of going back into, the earth and the cosmos and everything. But so, like, oh God, okay, so why does somebody have to be?
Which is anyone, no matter what you're doing, who you are, can achieve that, yeah. And then we have this idea of astrosis, where not everyone will achieve that, because not everyone will learn about the cosmos, and not everyone will have a connection to the cosmos, like, maybe an astronist would. But I'm not saying that astrosis and the achievement of that is sort of, well, just for people who follow astronism. Anyone can do that. But what astronism would say is that by following astronism, you might get the better, if you know what I mean. We've sort of created a set of practices and ideas and really a framework for people to follow in order to achieve that better. Well, they could do it free. Well, you could do it. You could call it freelance. You could do it yourself if you wanted. Yeah, but you might find it easier to be part of a system that sort of is already laid out for you. You've got those apparatus, that framework to achieve it with, if you know what I mean. But it's not by any means reserved just for astronists, but it is the goal of all astronists to achieve that, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay, so I hear what you're saying, but so what is the benefit then to ascribing to your worldview over, let's say, mine?
Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. I mean, it depends what worldview you have. I mean,
Well, I mean, like, mine is I mean, like, I don't ascribe to this in every sense, but like, I guess a naturalistic worldview is probably the closest thing that you could probably say. So I believe, just for example, that after we die there is no afterlife, there's no anything like that, and we go into the ground and we feed the worms, basically, right? Even this kind of thing that, like, we are returned into the cosmos. There's arguably, now I would probably say that it would be a stretch, but I would say that, like, there is a probabilistic naturalistic cause for that potentially happening, even under
Yeah.
my worldview.
Yeah.
So like our worldviews are very very similar, although
Yeah.
you've I think, and I don't mean this to like kind of come across as like a negative thing, because I don't mean it as it, but
Yeah.
you've kind of clearly tried to distance our worldviews in some respects, only in some, I would say.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
think.
I guess then like the like
Well.
kind of biggest question is,
Yeah.
what is the benefit to ascribing to your worldview over mine?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I think one thing we need to get a good understanding of is that yes, you have a naturalistic worldview, and so do we, really. But I would say that we are a derivation or a branch of your worldview that is specific to obviously cosmocentrism. So
Mm-hmm.
we are naturalistic, but we're specifically cosmocentric. So that is something that is probably quite unique to us, really. I've obviously studied all the different types of religions, and none of them really have that type of worldview. They may have a naturalistic worldview, but that can be towards like terrestrial nature rather than cosmic, on the level of galaxies and stars and planets and all those types of, on that level, if you know what I mean. So yeah, we are very closely aligned, actually. And I think obviously we share that belief, or disbelief, if you will, in the afterlife, and I mean, on the context of God, it might be a little bit different, but definitely on the idea of afterlife and this idea of the soul, we've sort of have similar ideas on. But then, obviously, as you were saying, that well, what is the difference? Well, the difference is that in astronism, there is when I say spirituality, there is a spirituality in the sense that, but not in the sense of a soul. I would say spirituality in the sense that emotionally spiritual. So when I look up at the stars, or when I go stargazing, for example, that is like a religious thing for me. That is I don't just do that like a scientist would. Do you know what I mean? And that's the difference. I'm looking at it very much from a philosophical, spiritual. Maybe spiritual is not the best word. I might need to create a new word for it. But um, there's an emotion there for me that wouldn't be there for, Pat yourself, I don't know, but definitely not for a scientist who is purely just looking at it from a scientific point of view. And I think that's something we need to get clear. But then also we have this idea of astrosis, which is obviously this idea that we can achieve this sort of cosmic union while we're still alive. Now, to understand astrosis, like everything in astronomism, there's different approaches, and I've known people that take a spiritual approach to that. So they say that their achievement of astrosis throughout their life is in relation to their spirit. It is in relation to, a spiritual element. For me, it's sort of going between spiritual and just naturalistic for me, or intellectual, you could say. For me, it's a mixture of the two, I would say. I think for me, the achievement of astrosis during my lifetime, it's definitely a religious journey, definitely. Whether it's a spiritual one in that sense, I'm a little bit less comfortable with that. But definitely an intellectual one. So it's definitely about knowledge. It's definitely about philosophizing or being philosophical about the cosmos. So I think that's possibly where we perhaps differ. But I don't think we differ that too much from what you're saying. I think I'm probably slightly more towards the spiritual side of things, or the the well, it's what I like to call preternatural. So not entirely supernatural, but not also natural as well. I like to sort of go in the middle there, really, between those two. Um,
Okay. Yeah. See,
yeah,
that's where we're gonna come into our first difference, I'm afraid.
fine.
Um.
No, it's fine. It's great. Well, that's why I came on this program because I
Yeah.
think you were sort of asking my colleague about why does he want to do this? Because it's called, you're not a religious person and you're not
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And I was like, well, no, because I speak to every different person, and I've spoken with atheists, I've spoken with staunchly, really deeply anti-religious people. Anti-religious in general, is hate religion in general, or any type of belief. And it's a good thing. I enjoy it. I don't want to just speak to people who share the same beliefs as me. I want to speak to people who don't, because that makes me better. To be honest, it gives me more knowledge. You know.
Okay. So I can respect everything that you have just said. The one and only kind of glaring difference that I'm after kind of picking up is you would mention, what is it, Petinature or something on those lines?
Preternatural, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So things are either natural or they're supernatural.
Right.
I take massive issue with this kind of in between area.
Okay. You're
Um,
at, okay.
so like basically it's like, so something is either naturally occurring or it's not. So
Yeah, I think it might just be. I might not have explained it properly. That what I mean by preternatural, we don't use it in the context of theology. We use it more in the context of people's abilities. So, for example, I do believe that certain people have greater abilities than others, and that those they're not. For example, myself. I don't know if you know much about the book that I've written. Do you know much about that book or not?
no, no.
Well, it's one of the longest books in the world. It's 2 million words long, and this is the book that has founded astronomism. It's called the Omnidoxy, and it was solely written by me from the age of 15. I was able to write this book really before I even got into philosophy, really, before I even had any education really in that. And I had experiences that not divine revelation or anything, but experiences that ideas, basically, a huge amount of ideas, in an abnormal way, in a way that wasn't normal to me or those around me who I was telling them. I mean, I was having ideas. I'd wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd just have ideas constantly flowing out of my mind about astronomism, and I would start writing about these things, and I could write sort of tremendously, like 20,000 words, in a short space of time, for example. And that's how obviously I was able to write this book, this 2 million word book, so quickly. And so that's what I would describe as preternatural. I would describe, because to me that isn't really normal to me. I'm not saying that I've got superpowers and all that stuff. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that to me, what I experienced didn't seem to be normal, and it didn't seem to be. I didn't see anyone else experience, for example. Do you know what I mean? I didn't really see anyone else do this, and I had these ideas, and they just kept flowing. And I'm very honest with you. This is what happened. I would all day, every day, constant ideas about this religion, about this philosophy that would constantly come into my mind all the time, and it got more and more as I went on, you know, and obviously, because how else do you think I was able to write that long book? And so that's the context that we use this word preternatural. So I think we need to just remember that it's not. I'm not saying that we have supernatural ability, but just abnormal. You know, beyond the abilities of others, you could say. Which
Okay, so
I
do
really disagree
you
with. Fine, you know, but it's. I can only tell you what I experienced, and that's what I had experienced, and you know,
okay.
that's
Uh
all I can say, you know.
do you think that you had any sort of how should I say it? Any sort of supernatural aid when you were writing the book?
No, not in the sense of no, not divine, not in the sense of divine.
I wouldn't even narrow it
Or
down to being divine. I would just kind of say anything that was like against nature.
no, no, I think
I
I
mean,
definitely
I would even kind of say, I mean, like being like against nature. I mean, I would even say that like, I don't know, did you take a rake of speed before you?
no, no,
Okay, so
um, yeah, I'm not
wouldn't
taking anything like that.
not I wasn't I was
No,
not
no, no, you're right. No,
wasn't
sorry.
accusing you. I'm just so like I'm kind of struggling then to kind of realize or to kind of understand why you think that it wasn't just a purely natural occurrence. Because
Well, I'm
if you
not
didn't
saying
have any sort of like
yeah.
outside influence or outside aid, then what? Then I mean, like, why was it anything other than just a natural occurrence?
Well, I think it was a natural occurrence in the how it happened, and I think in the sense that number one, it started when I was 15, and it started very very suddenly. There was no, I can't remember any real trigger to it. Um, and secondly, it was happening on at such a rate that I'm not saying that it's not that it's beyond nature. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that um, it wasn't it wasn't what other people might be able to write. You know what I mean? I can't imagine many other people being able to do that. Other people might have been able to do it. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
um, but to be able to write that amount in a fairly short space of time
Hmm.
with very very little education on theology and philosophy, um, to me, it just didn't seem right. It didn't seem, and it's still to this day. I mean, this is something that's very, very personal to me. This is something that I'm still trying to understand myself, and I think that's important to say. Is that I'm still grappling with this and really what had actually just happened? How have I even created this? You know, I
Okay.
come from a
Sorry,
yeah,
I just
yeah,
have to go. Um,
yeah.
I realize that they're not the same things. I mean, obviously, like you were doing a book, but I mean, there's not an awful lot of people who can do the same things that Harry Houdini did. I wouldn't describe him as being supernatural, though.
No, I wouldn't do either, but I would. Preternatural, possibly. He could be
Well,
have
I
been.
mean, there was a naturalistic explanation for everything that he did.
Yeah, I wouldn't compare myself to him.
I wasn't asking
I,
you to. I'm like
yeah,
basically just using him as the example of, like just because there's not an awful lot of people who can do as he
yeah,
did, it doesn't mean that he was like
yeah,
beyond human or that he was beyond nature or that like anything
yeah,
that he did had any sort of like a supernatural element to it.
yeah.
But
But you
so,
could
so
say, and this is how we describe preternatural, is something like an abnormal. Um, I'm not saying that it's supernatural, but it was definitely abnormal or beyond normal ability of the majority of other people. I think that's the best way to sort of pinpoint it. And we see these people throughout history. You know, Harry Houdini, yeah, could possibly have been one example of that, where he had this sort of fantastic ability to be able to conduct those types of performances. I don't really know a huge amount about him, but you know, from my perspective, just from learning about history and learning about all these different people in history and who are still alive today, what I experienced just, it wasn't normal, put it that way. I think I wouldn't go as far to say it's supernatural, and I never have done, I never will say that it was beyond nature. I mean, I have had, separately to that, I have had, you know, you could say, sort of deep contemplations, and I do like the practice of meditation. For example, I think that's quite helpful. I think it's quite a good practice. And deep contemplations, definitely, I've had those, to the extent to which, you know, I envision sort of the cosmos in a very clear sense, even though it wasn't right in front of me, for example. So definitely a really good imagination, you know. That is at the center of everything we're talking about. But I wouldn't necessarily describe it as normal. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the best way to put it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't say I'm not saying that it's supernatural, but
Yeah.
I'm not also saying that it's normal, because it isn't really. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Could we do that?
I'm. Yeah. Look, for the sake of discussion, I mean, like, yeah, I'll just. Yeah, I will agree that. Um, there's one question that I want to ask, basically. So, like,
No?
I'm still kind of battling with
Yeah.
this idea of astrosis. I mean, like,
Yeah.
what does cosmic union while you're alive mean, and why would I want it?
Yeah, correct. So basically, it is. It's an intellectual process. It's definitely an intellectual process. It's You could say as well, some people would want to attach spiritual ideas to that, as like a spiritual process, something that is beyond the natural for them. You know, you've got to understand that people can bring to this what they wish, and if they've got a spiritual worldview already, then they will attach those ideas to astrosis. But the core school that I follow, is that astrosis is an intellectual process, and really we would want to achieve it, or to at least go towards it, because to learn more about the universe that we live in, there's so many questions that are unanswered, both existentially, regarding why we even exist in the universe, our place in the universe, and also regarding the universe itself, the nature of the cosmos. Okay, the cosmos is expanding. What is it expanding into? Those types of questions. And I'm not saying that astrosis can give you those answers straight away, but it's more of an ability to perceive the cosmos in a way that is, yeah, beyond normal people, those who had just achieved cosmosis when they die, for example. You could also, in a sense, you could also relate to enlightenment, in Buddhism. Different in the sense that it's not necessarily a spiritual process, and there's nothing to do with reincarnation or anything like that. But in this sense that you're on a journey, I think, is how you can relate the two things. Of course, enlightenment's got nothing to do with space and sort of the cosmos, but but you can sort of see a parallel there between those two things. And astrosis really is this sort of this lifelong journey of attempting to achieve this sort of greater understanding, greater awareness of the cosmos. And I think people would benefit from achieving that. Well, in the sense that it will probably give them existential purpose. It gives me existential purpose. I can tell you that.
Well,
It
I mean,
gives me.
I would agree with you in the sense that like it would be like only beneficial for us to expand our knowledge about the cosmos and about the universe in general.
But not in a but we have to remember that what astrosis is, it's a religious and a philosophical achievement, a religious and philosophical process. It's not a scientific process. It's not just about going into a classroom and learning more. It's not, as I've said, just scientific. There is a religious philosophical element to it that is beyond the scientific element.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I understand what you mean. I just
being an astronomer, for example, and you might not be on this path to astrosis. You could be an astronomer. Obviously, you're learning a lot about it, but if you don't see the cosmos in that way, if you don't see the cosmos in a philosophical, religious sense, then you can't be on the process to astrosis. Do you get what I'm saying? You've got to look at it in that way in order to be on that process, because otherwise, like you might have been wanting to say, was otherwise, what's the difference between what I'm saying and just going about astronomy? There is no difference otherwise. So it's about how you approach and how you perceive the cosmos. Do you know what I mean?
I understand what you mean. I'm just struggling to understand why there's like a deistic sort of element, in my opinion, just like kind of based off of like everything that I've heard so far, and just off of everything that you have said, like why there's this deistic element kind of shoved in there. Like I kind of don't really understand why. Like I'm on board with pretty much everything that you have said. And I can wholeheartedly respect everything that you're kind of striving to achieve. I just don't know why there has to be a supernatural deistic element to it. That's all.
No, there doesn't. Yeah, I totally understand that. There doesn't, and there really doesn't need to be that. And astronomism, we have to understand. This is why I mentioned at the beginning that it really is a synthesis of religion and philosophy. This is a really important point because it's so different from anything else out there. Because yes, it has the religious elements. Yes, it does have beliefs in doing things in a religious context, definitely. But then you also have to remember this philosophical side. Philosophy, which is why I'm a philosopher, I love it so much, is open. It's open to development. It's open to challenge. It's open to reinterpretation. It's open to different approaches coming towards the same thing. Do you get what I'm saying? So yes, totally agree in the sense that why does there need to be sort of this idea of a creator god or some type of creation or some type of panentheistic or element to it? Well, there is for me, because I believe in the uncaused first cause, but there doesn't need to be for you. There doesn't.
Okay, so what do you think that the uncaused first cause is?
Well, to me, that is the idea that there must have been some type of beginning, not necessarily creation, but there must have been some type of, well, creation to this cosmos, if you know it. What we would need to now go into is astronic cosmology or astronist cosmology, because I've created or developed a whole understanding of really the universe, really. And it's this idea that, I mean, we're straying a little bit further away from the core ideas in astronomism, but I'll just explain it, because this is why theological. Okay, so we've got those three main ideas: this cosmocentric, cosmosis, and astrosis. They are central, and then there's a huge amount of other beliefs that are part of Martinism that aren't necessarily central, but they are there, and they relate to theology and some other disciplines. And one of those disciplines is cosmology. That's really important to have an understanding of the universe and how it's structured. So, what I believe is that that we live in a cosmos, okay, and that cosmos, the one we live in, is limited. To me, everything is limited. There is nothing that lasts forever in our reality here. Could we agree on that level? Just
Yeah.
before I go off,
Yeah.
the fact that there is a limitation to everything. Nothing seems to last forever, you know. There is that element to our nature. I also want to preface what I'm about to say is you don't need to believe in this to be part of astronomism, or even to be on the path to astrosis, or to be cosmocentric. Okay, you don't need to follow this. This is my interpretation. Okay, there's this the cosmos which we exist in, and then we've got. I believe that there must be something outside of this cosmos. Okay, we're still talking in natural terms here. We're not talking in supernatural terms.
Okay.
Because if something exists, right, like the cosmos from the Big Bang, expanding, and I mentioned this before, what is it expanding into? Okay, and if it's accelerating, like we know from the scientists have told us that it's actually accelerating in its expansion, then what is it expanding into? Okay, and so I was contemplating this idea for a long, long time, and I tried to sort of think about, okay, well, it must be expanding into something, because it would be illogical to say that it's not expanding into something, because remember, I'm a philosopher. I have to think in terms of logic and rationality. So it has to be expanding into something, but that something to me is infinite. To me, this is just my own belief, and this is how we define what a cosmos is and what a universe is. Okay, because in astronomism, you need to understand this as well. We have different terms. So the cosmos is what we exist in here, yeah, which is what the Big Bang created. But I believe in something outside of that, which is what I call the universe, which I think is infinite. And then we're going to come round to a concept you'll already be familiar with, I presume, which is this idea of the multiverse. I do believe in the multiverse. I do believe that there are other, like I've said, cosmoses that are also expanding, but they're not expanding. They're not expanding. Well, yeah, they are expanding, sorry, but they're never going to touch each other, because the universe that they're expanding into is infinite, and therefore they cannot ever clash, for example. Okay? And so we have this cosmos, we have all these cosmoses in this universe, this infinite amount of cosmoses in this infinite universe. Okay? And then again, we still come to this thing of, Okay. But what created the universe? Well, nothing really created the universe because the universe is infinite. Remember, it's infinite. It can't have been created. So the universe must always have existed, right? Are you kind of with me so far?
No,
You're not with me.
no. Just because
Okay,
something
right.
wasn't created doesn't mean that it was always here.
Let's just go back. So let's just go back. So do you get my idea about the cosmos and how we exist in a cosmos, and then something outside of this cosmos? There must be some space outside of this cosmos for us to expand into. Can you understand that? I'm not saying you agree with it, but
Yeah,
can you?
I can understand all this, but I mean, like you've kind of said, like you know, that like you believe in the multiverse, just for example. I
Yeah.
mean, like, okay, so do you have evidence that suggests that the multiverse is a reality?
No, I don't have evidence of that. But to me, it's based on logic, definitely. This idea that, okay, if there is one of something, then there could be others. So we that's the line of logic that I'm sort of taking. I'm not saying that there is, but there could be others.
Okay, I
And
realize that the conversation has been extraordinarily what's the word I'm thinking of? Agreeable. That's not the word that I
yeah,
wanted to use, but it's just the first one.
no,
It's
that's
just
fine.
the
And
only
I'm
one
not,
that's kind of coming.
yeah, yeah.
Um, that is the worst line of logic that I think I've ever heard. Simply
Okay, no,
because there is one universe does not in any way, shape, or form
well, no,
mean
I'm not saying
that
it
there
could.
could be another
No.
one.
I'm just saying that there could be, and if it's expanding
That's what,
into
yes,
something that,
but
if we're going
but
along this line that it's expanding into
could does
something,
not equal possibility.
well, yeah, of course. But what I'm saying is that the cosmos that we exist in is expanding, right? And what it's expanding into is infinite. So I'm saying that that it's infinite, which is what I call the universe. Okay, and if that space that is infinite outside our reality, our limited reality, then to me, there could exist, other there could exist other cosmoses outside of our own. There could. I mean, it's. I'm not saying that there is because I don't know that, but I'm trying to propose
But do you
ideas
believe it?
people are. And to me, if I would say that the universe is infinite, then I've also kind of got to say, well, if it's infinite, then it must also have infinite possibility. And so if it has infinite possibility, then then I kind of have to say that there is a multiverse, if you know what I mean. If we're talking about on infinite levels here, then we're going on to a different level from where we are now. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying, but I
Yeah.
mean, you've kind of already acknowledged that there's no evidence for the multiverse.
Well, yeah, there is no evidence
Yeah,
for it because
but
I can't leave this. I can't leave this cosmos to
but
to see
here's the
that
thing,
to have any
just
evidence for that. But I go on
just
this
one
line
sec,
of logic.
just
Or
one sec.
I
I
can.
promise.
Yeah,
One sec.
yeah.
The time to believe something is after it's been proven, not
Just
before.
just say it again.
The time to accept something as being true is after it has been proven,
Of
not
course it
before.
is. Yes, correct. I agree.
Right, but you've just said that you believe in the multiverse, and yet you've also said that you don't, that it hasn't
Well, I
been
believe in it. I
proven.
don't
So there's a little
know.
bit of a contradiction there,
No, no,
because
no,
you
no.
agreed with my statement, and yet you have two conflicting beliefs.
Well, I there's a difference between belief and knowing. I don't know that there is, but I believe. I don't need any evidence to show that
Okay, so maybe
myself.
it's just a
I believe.
conflict. Maybe it's just a
It's
conflict
kind of like,
of definitions then
yeah,
there, or sorry, not a conflict of
well,
definitions, a conflict of terms
well,
that we were using.
possible.
So like I I use believe and know interchangeably.
See, I
So
don't.
I
I
only
don't.
believe something after it's
Yeah.
been proven. So
Right.
if it's been proven, then we know that it's either
Well,
true
that
or
would
it exists,
be.
depending on what you're talking
Yeah.
about. So
See, yeah, okay, no, I get what you're saying. To me, that's totally wrong because that isn't the definition of belief. Belief is having faith in something,
okay, well,
even
I
if you
mean,
don't know,
okay,
even if
so
you
like
don't know
words
that it's
don't
happening. You know what I
words
mean?
don't have intrinsic meanings, they have usages, and that
Yeah,
is
of
my
course.
usage of the word believe. I use them interchangeably.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine for yourself. I mean, for me, obviously, we're talking about philosophy that I've created, and you need to understand the context in which I'm using these words. So you well, I'm not you shouldn't, but you if you're going to try and understand what I'm saying, you need to understand the words that I'm using to do that, and you need to look from my point of view, and think, okay, so he's using these words in that way. You know what I mean? And I keep the
I
words
understand that.
believe
I
and the word
I
knowledge
was I was
very,
I
very
was
separate.
I was only saying that just so that like we could kind of clear up any sort of
Yeah, of course. No, that's fine.
misunderstanding. Um,
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I just don't. Okay,
yeah,
but
yeah, okay, yeah,
but I mean, like, okay, so even though
yeah.
you are using the word believe in the more traditional sense, I still kind of have to ask the question is
Hmm.
of why do you believe it if it hasn't been proven? Because here's the thing with me,
Hmm.
and I realize that this is our first time talking and that we like know almost nothing about each other apart from what has been
Yeah,
said on this call. But
yeah.
if if you could come up with something, or if you found something that I believed that I didn't
Hmm.
have evidence for, I would stop believing it. And so I'm struggling to understand why you continue to believe in the possibility of the multiverse even though there is next to no evidence for it.
Well, there isn't any evidence for it, and
It's
because
hypothesized within science, within different scientific
yeah,
fields,
it's
but it's nowhere even
hypothesized.
near
Yeah.
being proven. That's
Well,
why I
to be
phrase it that
honest,
way. But the point
yeah,
is,
this.
I just don't know why you believe it.
No, no, yeah, no, that's fine, and I can sort of explain it a little bit, and it's kind of it's interesting because the way that astronism, our reality, when I was saying about it being limited, part of that means that we, as people within this cosmos, we cannot ever, I don't think ever, we won't ever be able to leave this cosmos. Okay, that's one really important thing when we're talking about cosmology and astronomy, is this idea that we cannot, neither can we leave this cosmos, and neither can we know or prove anything beyond this cosmos. Okay, that's one thing that all we can know and all we can prove and all we can truly understand is inside this cosmos that we live in. Okay, so that's something really important to get there, firstly. And so because we have that belief, we actually we will never be able to know whether the universe is a multiverse. We'll never be able to know that because our own belief says, well, you can never leave this cosmos, and you can never know
But but why do
beyond this
you think that
cosmos.
we'll never be able
Our own
to?
belief, our own belief is actually stating that um, that that we cannot know anything beyond this cosmos.
But
So our
hang
own
on, dude,
belief,
hang on. Why
yeah,
do you
yeah.
think that we will never be able to demonstrate that a multiverse exists? Why do you think that we'll never be able to like discover beyond our cosmos?
Because, like I was saying earlier, is that because this cosmos, to me, I interpret it as being limited in nature. We are limited in nature. We're limited in our thoughts. We're limited in our actions, definitely. And so is the galaxies, and the cosmos itself is limited. If anything is created, like it has a limitation to it because it was created. It hasn't always existed. So like the cosmos, it can't have always existed. This particular cosmos that we live in, because it was created when the Big Bang was happened. 13.8 billion years ago.
Yeah.
So we can put a number to how long the cosmos has been around, but
Right.
that's still a limitation. Do you get what I'm saying? That's still a limitation. Even though it's a really long time, it's still a limitation.
Okay, I still don't
Yeah,
understand why you think that we'll never be able to discover or like,
in
I'm not
order
even
to,
like talking about
yeah,
like going to one of
yeah,
the other universes, like
yeah.
going into the multiverse and going to, I don't know, where like everything is drawn by Disney or something. I don't know. But like, why do you think that we like won't even discover
Um,
evidence
yeah,
that suggests that the multiverse
because in order
exists?
to do that, we'd have to leave this. We'd have to leave this cosmos in order to
Okay,
do
but
that.
why don't you think that we can do that
Because
eventually? Eventually,
because
I don't mean right now. I don't
yeah,
even mean in our lifetimes. I mean
yeah,
eventually.
yeah. No, I understand that what you're saying. Because fundamentally we are limited. That I can't get around that. We are limited. So being in basically the way that my cosmology is structured is that we'd have to leave this cosmos, go into the universe, which is infinite, and then enter another cosmos. Because that's how usually that's like a standard multiverse hypothesis, is this idea that we live in these kind of bubbles, if you will. You can imagine them as like bubbles. So we'd have to leave this one, go into the universe as like an infinite space, and then go into the next one. And that just isn't logical, because to go into something that is infinite, i.e. the universe, from my point of view, we'd never reach the other cosmos. We'd never reach it, because the universe is infinite, so you can't travel
But
through that.
sorry,
You go on.
I just
Yeah,
I just
it's
like
difficult. It's really deep stuff. It's probably the most advanced stuff, because this is cosmology.
I wasn't even
Yeah.
gonna go I wasn't even gonna go anywhere near that. I was gonna say that like that's almost a limitation of your imagination, because
Well, yeah, it
200
could.
years
Yeah.
ago,
Well, I am
just
limited. I
ha,
am a limited being. Yeah.
but no, but like what I'm saying is that two or
Yeah.
300 years ago, the idea of the phone that is responsible for everybody hearing you right now,
Mm,
the S10 Plus, which is the phone that I have, that 200 or 300 years ago would have been like a miracle from God,
yeah.
like
Correct. Yeah.
this like unbelievably advanced tech.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that we don't know what unbelievably advanced tech is going to exist 200 or 300 years from now. And
Yeah. And I
I'm
think,
not even
yeah.
limiting it to that period of time. It could be 1,000, it could be 2,000 years from now. The point
Yeah.
is that we don't know what is or isn't going to exist in the future. So
Yeah.
the the claim that you're essentially making, that the possibility of entering a different cosmos is next to
We'd
zero.
have to travel through
I mean,
infiniteness.
I would just kind of,
We'd have to change our nature. We'd have to change our nature. So
why?
what I believe is that
Why?
we have a limited nature, because in order to go into the space, which I call the universe, that's infinite, we'd have to become infinite ourselves. We'd have to change our nature in order to leave this
Why would we
cosmos.
have to
Because this cosmos,
why would we have to become infinite to enter something that you are describing as infinite?
well, because the cosmos, as we understand it, is expanding at as fast as anything that could expand within, um, you know, within this existence.
Right.
So we have to think about that as well. We have to think. I mean, it's theoretically possible, because, well, maybe not theoretically, but it's imaginationally possible. You could say that's not a word, but you could say, because we can imagine doing that, it could happen. So you could say that,
No,
but I
I wasn't even going to
don't
I wasn't even
believe.
going to say that. I was going to say that it is theoretically possible at some point in the future, given the advancements in technology and understanding that they
I
will
mean,
have then. Much like
gosh,
the example
yeah,
that I gave earlier, 200 or 300 years ago, the idea of a
definitely.
supercomputer that can fit in my pocket was unimaginable. Like
Yeah,
almost nobody was even imagining that. So
yeah. I
the
mean,
fact
yeah,
that
that's
we can
great.
imagine it now even
I mean,
is
yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm against doing that. I mean, if they somehow could do that, that would be absolutely amazing. That would be amazing. But I just don't believe that that will happen. But if they could do that somehow, gosh, more power to them. They'll probably look on me as some sort of bloody backward person who didn't even, God, look
wasn't
how
even
backward
suggesting
I
it,
was,
man. Wasn't even suggesting it. Um
you know.
okay, so
But
uh
yeah, hopefully they would do, and that would then prove the existence of multiverse. So yeah, that'd be great.
okay, so in the interest of time, I know that you had said that you were wanting to kind of wrap it up
Yeah.
for in round now. A new question that I am now going to be asking every single
Okay.
caller that calls in, and I'm going to start with yourself is in the worst case, like what is the worst case scenario if you're wrong?
Um, there's no wrong in what? Wrong in the way I see the world, or wrong
Yes.
in um. Well, there is no worst case scenario at all. I mean, I'm very open to. You have to understand that astronism is something that will develop beyond me. I'm not going to last forever. Okay, I'm going to eventually die, and like other religions, people will take over it and they will do what they wish with it. And I've been very relaxed with astronism and its development, and it's not like other religions in the sense that God hasn't come down and said this is what it is and nothing will ever change as part of that, which is what other religions are like. So, yeah, there isn't really a worst case scenario. As long as the people in the future they're achieving greater knowledge and a greater understanding of the cosmos, then I'm happy. Yeah, that's great. That's what astronomism is all about. Great. So there is no worst case scenario for me. As
Okay.
long as people still, I mean, the worst case scenario you could say then is people don't even really care about it and just continue living without it and just stay on this one planet. That's the worst case scenario for me. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
All right. Okay. So just for the video side of it, guys, we're just gonna leave it there. If you just kind of just wouldn't mind just hanging on to like literally a minute maximum after I end the stream, that'd be absolutely fantastic.
I'm happy. Yeah, that's great.
All right. Okay.
Uh,
So guys, so
Matt,
I hope you enjoyed the stream. Check back with us tomorrow. Not exactly 24 hours. It'll be a little bit longer than a full day for the next call-in show. So until then.